A reading from the second letter of Paul to the Corinthians. Since many boast according to human standards, I will also boast. But whatever anyone dares to boast of, I am speaking as a fool. I also dare to boast of that. Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they descendants of Abraham? So am I. Are they ministers of Christ? I am talking like a madman. I am a better one, with far greater labors, far more imprisonments, with countless floggings, and often near death. 5 times I have received from the Jews the 40 lashes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I received a stoning. 3 times I was shipwrecked. For a night and a day I was adrift at sea. On frequent journeys, in danger from rivers, danger from bandits, danger from my own people, danger from Gentiles, danger in the city, danger in the wilderness, danger at sea, danger from false brothers and sisters. In toil and hardship, through many a sleepless night, hungry and thirsty, often without food, cold and naked. And besides other things, I am under daily pressure because of my anxiety for all the churches. Who is weak and I am not weak? Who is made to stumble and I am not indignant? If I must boast, I will boast of the things that show my weakness. The word of the Lord. From all their afflictions, God will deliver the just. From all their afflictions, God will deliver the just. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise continually be in my mouth. My soul makes its boast in the Lord. Let the humble hear and be glad. From all their afflictions, God will deliver the just. O magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. I sought the Lord, and he answered me, and delivered me from all my fears. From all their afflictions, God will deliver the just. Look to him and be radiant, so your faces shall never be ashamed. This poor soul cried, and was heard by the Lord, and was saved from every trouble. From all their afflictions, God will deliver the just.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to his disciples, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness?" The Gospel of the Lord. So we're continuing our preaching series on reparation. On the first Friday of June, Father Tim set the stage explaining why we're doing this. And then last Friday, Father Tim spoke about the Sacred Heart, the wounds that we've inflicted upon Jesus, and also some of the different ways in which we can respond. Now, reparation, again, is where we seek to repair, to heal, to restore the damage caused by sin, whether by us or by others. And over these next 2 Fridays, I want to look at some of the more practical ways in which we can engage in praying for reparation. So today I'll speak first on fasting and penance, and the next Friday I'll speak more on prayer and specific prayers we can pray. So fasting and penance is usually something we talk about in Advent and Lent, right? We don't necessarily bring it up much throughout the year, but it's still spiritual practices that we're called to engage in the entire year. And for instance, every Friday of the year, with the exception of solemnities, we're asked in Canada to fast and abstain from meat. Since the early church Christians have been engaging in forms of fasting and doing penance on Fridays because of the suffering and death of Jesus on Good Friday. We want to draw closer into this great mystery in which our God chose to suffer and die for us. So when we fast, we're denying ourselves of something that is good. When we do acts of penance, we take on something that has a spiritual benefit. We do this not to punish ourselves, not out of some twisted understanding of God's love or a rejection of goodness or our own bodies or creation, but we do this out of love. A love in which we're willing to deny ourselves or do something for the sake of the other. A love which is willing to suffer and be with someone else in their suffering. In this case, it's the suffering of Christ, the suffering of his church, the suffering of his people. And when it comes to fasting and penance, there are 2 main categories that come to my mind. We have active and we have passive. So active means it's something that I'm choosing, an idea that I came up with that I'm following through with. For instance, choosing to give up meat on Fridays or fasting on bread and water. Those would be active. Choosing not to use social media for a period of time would be active. Choosing to stop amidst the busyness of your day at 3 p.m. to pray a Divine Mercy Chaplet, that would be active. We're training ourselves to say no so we can say yes to something else. No to the things of the world, yes to the things of the Lord. And like our gospel reading, we're making the decision to store up treasures in heaven and not in this world. And as we fast and do penance, we're strengthening ourselves so that we can also say no to those temptations when they arise. If we can't say no to the little temptations, how can we say no to those bigger temptations as they come? So that's a quick summary of active forms of fasting and penance. So now let's look at passive. So passive means that I'm responding to a situation I find myself in. I'm uniting that situation, whatever I'm going through, to God. It comes from the day-to-day situations of life, those things that I encounter that I didn't plan, these things that stretch me, that cause inconvenience, that call me to die to self. There are those little participations in the cross that are offered to us. They're like spiritual slivers of the cross. And I'm guessing you've all had an actual sliver in your hand before, or maybe your foot. And it's just small, but it's a great inconvenience. It causes great pain to the entire body. It distracts us, causes us to be caught up with it. And so passive forms of fasting and penance are often much more difficult for people, including myself, because it involves letting go of control. It's not something I chose. It's not something I came up with. It involves letting go of our pride, our own ideas, our own plans, and learning to accept and unite that situation with God. And while we didn't choose them per se, we do need to choose how we respond to them. For instance, I use the example of acting fasting where you give up social media for a time. Well, a passive version of that is, say your power goes out, your cable stops working. You didn't choose for that to happen, and yet you're given this opportunity to withdraw, to give up something, to feel that little bit of a hunger for something of this world so that you can redirect that hunger for spiritual things, for God. Now, another example is, say you're out going to work or going out on errands and you get a flat tire. It's pouring rain. You didn't choose to get a flat tire. You didn't choose for it to rain. And so it's a frustrating experience. It's an experience that stretches you. And in the midst of that, you unite that inconvenience. You unite that suffering with Jesus. You give up your plans. You set aside your own time, your own agenda. You fast, in a sense, from yourself. And throughout this entire pandemic, with all the lockdowns, all the restrictions, we've had endless opportunities of these passive fasting, passive penances. And again, while I use the term passive, our attitude and disposition needs to be anything but passive. We need to engage, we need to respond, we need to say yes. St. Augustine said that trials and tribulations offer us a chance to make reparation for our past faults and sins. On such occasion, the Lord comes to us like a physician to heal the wounds left by our sins. Tribulation is the divine medicine. So in this month of June, as you know, we're inviting all of the parish to engage in this time of prayer, this time of fasting, this time of reparation in response to the many sins and injustices of our time. And so I invite you to reflect upon your own spiritual life. Examine what forms of active penance, active fasting that you're currently doing on a regular basis. Maybe it's something you do on Fridays. But what are you doing? Then reflect on what's your normal response? What's your disposition when you encounter these trials, these inconveniences, these passive forms of penance, passive forms of fasting? Do you see them as opportunities? Do you see them as chances to die to self, to draw closer to Christ, to carry that small weight, that small sliver of a cross? Or do we let these opportunities go wasted? St. Teresa of Calcutta, or Mother Teresa, she said that pain and suffering have come into our life. But remember, pain and sorrow, suffering are but a kiss of Jesus, a sign that we have come so close to him that he can kiss us. So I encourage you to spiritually unite your fasting and penance, to make reparation for the injustices of our times and the wounds that our world has inflicted, including our own inflictions upon the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Form an intention in your mind. It's easy just to kind of drift through the day to not unite what we're going through with Jesus. But we need to develop that practice of uniting everything with God so that we never waste a moment of suffering. So next Friday, as I mentioned, I will speak more on specific prayers, specific devotions that we can pray as we seek to make reparation. And as powerful it is for us to engage in praying for reparation, to fast, to do penance as individuals, when we do this as a community, as we're calling you to this month, it's so much more powerful because one, we're not alone, but also we're kind of multiplying all that we're doing. So may we continue to press in this month. May we draw close to the Lord. May we draw close to his Sacred Heart. And may we allow the Lord to kiss us as we draw close to him in his own sufferings.